I gotta go look at a mirror and be like, you are the best. All right, hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Empty Heads podcast with me, Garrett, and
me, Eamon.
Yes. What are we going to talk about this week, Eamon?
Okay, actually, yeah. So I
had
mentioned
a tidbit.
Yeah, I have a tidbit. So I went home and my mom was like looking like at pictures and stuff, and she pulls out this picture of my grandpa in 1962 in Syria, and he's shaking hands with the American ambassador to Syria. His name was like Ridgewell Knight or something like that. Like, I did some research in like 5 minutes. It's because my grandpa was like a professor at the University of Aleppo, and like the American ambassador was visiting him for like this sprinkler system he'd invented or some shit like that. It's pretty awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I have like a picture. I'll show you that later. But yeah, it's just like, it's so interesting how my grandpa like actually, I don't know, he like has been and seen and met like actual like quote unquote historical figures, because like, yeah, you know, just some random ambassador.
Yeah.
But, like, pretty interesting. Because like in 1955, he went to the Soviet Union, and he has this little diary that I have, and it's like pictures of the Soviet Union he took and like little notes. And it's in English, which is kind of weird considering, you know, like Arabic. But, you know, it's weird like the kind of life my grandpa led before, you know, like Alzheimer's got to him. But really interesting stuff.
Pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. I don't have any that I know of, any like family memorabilia that's like really cool or interesting. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, yeah.
Basically nothing like what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's rare. And then like some of my great uncles are like one of them, or he just died actually. My grandpa's little brother. He was like lieutenant general of like the Jordanian army.
Yeah, you had told me about that.
Yeah. Or it's, you know, since it's like British, so it's lieutenant general.
And he had like a military funeral. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is pretty cool, you know, like arms salute or whatever the hell. I saw it, like it was on like national TV.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like that's really interesting. And then another one, my mom was showing me a picture of him. He was also general of like some little fucking group or whatever. Interesting stuff though.
Yeah, absolutely. So how was your week?
You know, it was all right. We've seen each other a lot this week.
Yeah, we have.
We hate to admit that. We hate to admit that we're breaking the protocol of distancing.
It seems like the protocol is falling apart at this point.
Yeah. Just masks. Now that's law. Gavin Newsom made it law in California to wear masks in public spaces. I don't think they're really gonna enforce that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like something that's like widely enforceable.
I think like a cop will write a ticket if he sees like a person of color not wearing a mask. He'll write up a ticket, but if it's a white person, he won't. Not to get political, but that's definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
That's definitely a more realistic scenario than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree.
You hate to see that, but it's definitely the case.
This is a little awkward.
But other than that, this week has been a lot of tidying up and relaxation, because it's the only week I have off of not school, because next Monday, in a few days, I start school, and I really don't want to do that. But
Next week is the start of cargo shorts summer for me.
Really? Wow.
I don't actually have cargo shorts.
You know, I used to wear cargo shorts as a kid when I was like a lot shorter and a lot fatter.
I never wore cargo shorts.
Oh, no. Cargo shorts, not everyone can rock them.
It doesn't seem like a look that's remotely rockable.
No. You know what, though? Our good pal Johnny can.
Yeah.
He rocks
Not to drop any names, but we know a guy named Johnny.
We know a guy named Johnny. and he does wear the occasional cargo short.
It is his cargo short summer, after all.
It's like the summer of George.
Yeah.
the summer of cargo shorts.
It was supposed to be the summer of cargo shorts.
Yeah, but the Rhone has locked us down for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, it's just interesting how like we're all just kind of like, yeah, we acknowledge it and all that, but we're just slowly just ignoring it. Even though we followed, lot like quarantine and all that for the longest time, now it's just sort of like,
I don't think people are necessarily ignoring it. I think it's just like, well, what are you gonna do? Like,
yeah, I guess.
which is just so stupid and like ill-advised and all this other bullshit. But it's like, we're not in the position to make that kind of decision, so it's not our place to really say, I guess.
I think like the most ill-advised part of it is like restaurants and bars opening up.
Definitely.
Because like people get so close and so, like food and all that. And like, so those type of places shouldn't, I still don't think should open up for like dine-in service.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing like the NBA isn't, they're doing their sort of bubble, so they don't have any
in Orlando.
fans or anything like that in Orlando, because that would be just a hot spot. All those people packed into one place would be just would be bad.
Because they're like the players aren't allowed to leave the.
No, they're not.
Like no one's allowed in or out.
Basically.
And then this company designed this ring that tracks them obviously, but also detects symptoms apparently of coronavirus 3 days early.
That's interesting.
Which you could buy it. It's $300, but like I don't know how it works, and it doesn't really make any sense. Maybe pulse and sweat and all that other nonsense, but like it's so interesting, and every NBA player is gonna have one, and it's gonna be like this super doodad ring. When I saw like some sports news thing tweet about it, a bunch of replies were like, just looks like a tracker to me, and it's like, okay, what's the difference? It's still tracking them. If they leave, obviously that's against the
Bill
contract.
Gates coronavirus vaccine that'll alter your DNA.
Right? Yeah. It'll alter your DNA, and then once the 5G turns on, it'll mutate you.
Yeah. You'll be mutated. You'll turn into Frogman.
You'll turn into the. Do you know the Cyclopses from Fallout?
No.
It's like these like 6-legged like human caterpillar things with like tentacle mouths. That's what you'll turn into.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. It's really gross, but Bill Gates knows what's best.
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah, he's.
But apparently, it won't be until like the final 8 teams where players will be able to like bring their families in.
I guess that makes sense. There'll be a lot of people.
They're essentially, it'd be like filling up all those spots that the players and the coaches left of the other amount of teams. So
that makes sense because it's it's the players, the coaches, and then like the team staff.
And it's like
towel guys.
They created the environment for X amount of people, and once a certain amount of people are gone, then they can go back up to that capacity with players' families and whatnot, I think.
Right. So when would the playoffs be?
They're doing 8 games.
Oh, they're just 8 games?
For the rest of the regular season.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
Which starts like next week or something like that. And then they're doing the playoffs, which I don't know. I still don't have full details on how that's supposed to work.
Right, but that's going to be interesting. Like no fans, all the same stadium, just probably going to change the wood tiles so like it'd be home and away, quote unquote.
Yeah. Or they'll just make it neutral ground or something like that. I don't know. Because there's no way to have like any sort of home court advantage when they're not at home.
Yeah, and there's nobody there.
So like there's no they're probably just going to be NBA courts. It's not going to be Lakers.
Yeah.
They're gonna put Lakers on one side and the other team on the other side of like the corners of the court, and the center is gonna be the NBA logo instead of like one of the teams.
Do you think that's what it's gonna be? Probably.
Most likely.
It'd be funny if the center logo was like the coronavirus like thing.
Yeah.
And they just play it on top of that.
So yesterday, Last of Us Part 2 came out. Purchased it day one at like actually I pre-purchased it like at 11 o'clock on Thursday, and I'm about maybe like 3.5 4 hours in, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, but much like the first game, it's pretty heavy like right off the bat.
Right.
But apparently, and I haven't spoiled it for myself though, that people are saying like the ending and stuff is like really bad, and like so my brother told me Metacritic, they're only allowed to review half the game for spoilers.
Wow.
So he's saying that's why the Metacritic score is so high, is that they didn't play the other half and get to the rest of the narrative or whatever.
Huh.
And but it seems like on Reddit, like I'm not sure how to navigate whether or not it's people complaining about SJW sort of bullcrap about the game, or if it's people actually upset with the narrative. Because some people are.
Because what I mean, I haven't played the games, but like I haven't played the first one either. It isn't like the main character. I forgot her name. Doesn't she
Ellie.
have like a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah, and didn't people get really pissed off about that?
I don't know. Yeah, most likely. Yeah, obviously.
Gamers.
People
yeah.
are going to be. Certain people are going to be pissed off about that because they're stupid. But
thing.
um,
Like, they're video game characters. Who cares?
I know it's strange, but yeah. So it's hard to navigate sort of the landscape of what that is, and it's just interesting, really.
Yeah, that is an interesting. It always sucks, like, hearing about a show or a game or a movie you really like, and then like everyone's like, oh, it's good, but then the ending is like not. I mean, you hear about Breaking Bad, everyone says that. A lot of people say that about Breaking Bad.
I hear more people say the ending is good than bad.
I've seen a lot of both on like
But-
Reddit and stuff.
No, the thing is like when I see people talking about the ending of Breaking Bad, like the people who say it's bad are like in the minority, I think. And a lot of the people who are saying it's good are like, man, this is the perfect ending of
Right,
a TV
yeah.
show ever.
I think.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it was like the best way to end it off and to like deal with, Walter and Jesse and all that. I still need to watch El Camino, but
Yeah. But the show that's essentially taking that spot now, because it used to be like Dexter,
right, yeah.
like a lot, is Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, that's
The
why.
ending is shit. It's not worth watching now. I can say that gladly.
The whole show.
It's probably not worth it just because the ending is
Damn.
just like it doesn't pay anything off really. It
Yeah,
just feels so misguided almost.
damn. It's because they wanted to work. They're working on like a Star Wars thing.
They're not anymore.
Oh right, they got dropped. Yeah.
Yeah,
weren't
either
going
they
on-
dropped it or they got dropped. I forget.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I haven't seen Game of Thrones yet, but I was talking to one of my friends and she was like, I was like, should I watch it? And she was just kind of like, no, like it's just not. Like the show is really good, but then you're just gonna be so disappointed that you're gonna regret wasting your time watching it.
Yeah,
And I just like
100%.
I keep thinking about that. And like same thing for me with like Man in the High Castle, the Amazon show. Like, have you seen that yet?
No,
Okay, it's how many seasons? I think it's like 4 seasons. I would say it's like excellent all the way until like literally the final bit of the last episode. Like,
really.
that's it. That's the way it ends is so ridiculous and left to like massive interpretation, and that's it. It's just over. And I think the reason that is I read about it, the show's producers wanted to like continue a little longer to like flesh out a proper ending. But Amazon was like, no, like you have to end it in
interesting.
season 4,
Yeah, that's interesting.
which I really, really hate that. 'Cause it's like, it's such a good, well, the show's about, if the Nazis won the war and
Yeah.
them and the Japanese kind of split up the world. And then, they have the eastern United States up until like the Midwest sort of, and then there's a neutral area, and then the Japanese have the Pacific States. And then like, a whole rebellion thing. But it's a really good show. And then it kind of gets a little sci-fi because it's based on the book, Man in the High Castle.
Yeah.
But it's just like the way it ends, like just kind of, it makes sense in the context of the show. But when you really think about it, it's just like, okay, then what? You can't really think of an ending. Like it's so open-ended where it's like none of it really lines up with like what would happen in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to avoid there's not many TV shows I've watched where the ending has just been really bad.
Yeah.
I try to avoid that if I can, which I don't know how you would avoid that, but like I watch what I know is like critically acclaimed, like best shit, no matter what.
That's the thing. Like, Game of Thrones was for the longest time.
Yeah, but like season 8 is the worst rated season ever critically.
Jeez.
And it's like of that show, and you knew while watching it, like the first 2 episodes of that season are like pretty killer, and then the rest you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like,
right, yeah.
especially the last 2 episodes. The last 2 episodes are horrendous, just horrible.
Because I remember seeing like interviews and stuff of like the actors, like Emilia Clarke and the guy who plays Jon Snow, what's his name? Kit
Harington.
Kit Harington, Kirk, and they were just like, what'd you think? Like interviewers, and they're just so disappointed and so sorry.
Yeah, but they're like, they play it off so well, but like you can almost see like in their soul, in their eyes, they know it's like no good.
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
That's probably such a terrible feeling. Like, they work so hard to really master those characters just for the writers and directors or whatever to fuck them over.
Yeah.
And like,
well, like even the writers, for a long time, they were doing such a good job at adapting the source material and adding pieces of their own material.
oh, because the books weren't done yet.
The books weren't done, and there were things like little things that they changed from the books to make it more adaptable to TV.
Right, 'cause some things don't make
and
sense.
some of the stuff that didn't appear in the books is like so well written. Like, I couldn't give you a specific example because you wouldn't like understand.
Right, yeah.
But there are scenes and stuff that are left out were never in the book, but are in the show that flesh out the characters even further than the source material, and they're so well written. It just leaves you wondering, like, what were these guys doing for like the last 2 seasons? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, they did such a good job working with the source material and even adding to it that it feels so like just so odd.
Right.
That they just sort of do that with something that's so good,
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah, you definitely like it. That sort of stuff is just so. It's just so intricate and so interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, they took the source material and then expanded upon it, and then somehow blew it. Was it always slated for 8 seasons, or was it I thought, wasn't it slated for 10 seasons?
No. Actually, I think it was. I don't know all the details, but the writers were like, "Oh, we could do this in 8 seasons." And HBO, knowing that it's a money-making machine, were like, "You can have 10 episodes for the last 2 seasons." They're like, "Oh, no, we can do it in a shorter amount of episodes." And it was clear that they couldn't.
Right, yeah.
And it was clear that by the end, they were rushing to just put it out and be done with it. Or like, yeah. It was just a hack job by them, honestly.
Damn.
But speaking of television, thank you for Hulu, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Using your account.
Jeez.
Atlanta started that.
Is that on Hulu?
FX is on Hulu. All the FX catalog is on Hulu.
Oh my! I've had Hulu this whole fucking time, and I didn't know Atlanta was
Yeah.
on. I guess that's my fault for not looking
Atlanta,
into it.
Fargo, everything from FX is on there. Legion, the X-Men show.
Is that show any good?
I've heard it is. That's
Really?
what I'm like. I want to get into it at some point.
The Americans, that's an FX show.
The Americans
that show's good.
is
You should
on
watch
there.
that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like FX makes great stuff, and Atlanta, just those first 2 episodes, there's like aspects of it that did I watch 3 episodes? It doesn't matter. There are aspects of the show that feels so like abstract.
Yeah.
And it's weird to explain, but you'd have to watch it. But it's really funny while also just being kind of like weirdly
serious.
Like, yeah, serious.
Yeah, that's like the point, is that it's like it tries to put a serious face on, but it's actually a bit of a comedy.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's intentional because Donald Glover was a comedy writer for so long.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's
But
his thing. Is he still? Are they still making that show?
I think they are. I think they just space out the seasons.
Right. Well, that
But
makes sense.
the cast for that show is really good too. Like
Who
yeah.
else is on the show? I know nothing about Donald Glover and.
Donald Glover, Zazie Beetz.
Oh, okay.
Do you know Lakeith Stanfield?
No.
He's the guy in Get Out.
Oh, okay.
Not the main guy.
Oh, I see.
He's the guy that the main character finds there, and he's like, "Oh, this dude was missing," and then he flashes the camera.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
That guy, and then this other guy, Brian Tyree Henry. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's been in a bunch of stuff too. But yeah, great cast.
Sweet.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah, I needed it.
Only 2 episodes in, and I already recommend it. So
But yeah, I started watching the new season of F is for Family. That show's fun.
yeah, I've been watching that too.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
It's a nice, like sort of American, like 1970s. Are you okay? Choking your drink there. Nice, like 1970s American like lifestyle sort of deal, and it's just so funny because Bill Burr does such a good job of being like a
1970s dad.
asshole 1970s dad.
Yeah.
And his voice is just like he always has a bit of anger in his voice when he's doing his character.
Stand up and whatnot. Yeah.
So like he just does that for an animated show, and it works really well for a 1970s like Korean War vet.
Yeah.
Like,
Speaking of
fighter
cast,
pilot.
that show has a great cast too.
Which show?
F is for Family.
Oh, I was friendly. Yeah.
Sam
'cause-
Rockwell is in that. Like Laura Dern plays his wife.
Yeah, no, they're all. It's just like it looks stupid. It looks like your. It looks like your standard.
Sort of Family Guy.
Yeah, sort of Family Guy, shitty, like, American Dad, whatever sort of show. But when you really watch it, you see, like, why it's good. It's just, like, there's so many, like, stereotypes or whatever that are there. Like, their neighbor's the radio host who's a cocaine addict or just a drug addict.
Yeah.
And he's, like, this macho man. And then the
It's
German
just all,
neighbor.
Yeah, it's all very 70s. Very funny. They make the way they make fun of television in the 70s is hilarious.
Oh, yeah, where it's, like, the detective shows.
Yeah, Colt Luger. He's
Yeah.
like, a man's got to do what a man does or something like that.
And he's just, like, this fat white guy.
And then every time it goes on anything other than his TV show, he's like this drunk, like,
asshole.
sort of Sean Connery type.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really fitting. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it's such good commentary on 70s America. And then, like, that one, you're in season 3. His new neighbor is a Vietnam
veteran, yeah.
vet. Yeah, that's funny. That guy's character arc is, like, very funny. You haven't finished the season yet, right?
No.
Okay, so I won't tell you what goes on, but it's really funny. It's like a very good timepiece. Yeah, there's a lot of shows that are like very. I mean, obviously we never lived through the 70s and the 80s, but like they seem like they're very fitting of the time. Like Glow is very, and like Stranger Things are very 80s.
Very 80s, yeah.
70s, F is for Family, and like I guess that 70s show, but I never watched that.
I didn't watch it either. I've heard it's funny, but
The main actor is like. He's on like rape charges right now or something.
Recently, yeah.
Which is terrible. Like, fuck. That's just like terrifying to think about. The whole like Hollywood, like sexual assault ring.
yeah.
That's just so sad.
I'm pretty sure he's a Scientologist.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Which is just even like, just adds more
Worse.
fuel to the fire
Yeah,
or
it's
whatever.
just like, how
a
the fuck-
weirdness. Oh, man.
Oh, God. The world has some strange characters. Yeah, but then like, are there any shows, like modern shows, that are like 90s timepieces? I don't think so. I guess
I
like,
have to think about that.
but like Everybody Hates Chris. No, that's in the 80s.
Like South Park and Family Guy.
But they were in the 90s. They started.
I know, but they like of those seasons, even The Simpsons too. It's like of that time, but
Right,
then they
that's
evolve past that once you're into the 2000s or the aughts, as people like to say. I don't know.
What?
The aughts.
I've never heard that.
You've never heard the aughts?
No. Is that the 2000s?
Yeah.
That's
It's an odd term. It's an odd term. I don't understand it really.
This is the zeros.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bet in like another decade there'll be like 90s shows. Like
Probably,
shows set in the 90s.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. You know what's so when Stranger Things was first becoming a thing, it was like our sophomore year.
Yeah.
So my cousin was, living with us for a bit from Saudi Arabia, and then he was like, "Oh, what like shows do you recommend?" And I was like, "Oh, Stranger Things is great. Like it's his 80s, it's set in the 80s, blah blah." And he was like, "Okay, check it out." So he told me he watched like an episode. He was like, "I didn't really like it that much," and I was like, "What? It's so like funny and fitting of the time or whatever." And like how it's like secret American government agency,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then he was like, I was like, the 80s is just so funny. And he was like, yeah, I'm more of a 90s guy. And I was like, what? What does that even mean? Like, he's a year older than me, or like 2 years. So like, he wasn't around for the 90s.
Yeah.
So like,
what does it mean to be a 90s guy?
It was just such a funny response. And I was like, how the hell? You could have just said, you didn't like this aspect of the show, but saying something like that,
guy.
Yeah, it made no sense. It was so funny.
That's what you say when it's about music, really.
Right? Yeah. I'm more of a '90s music, like '90s rap or whatever. But like about like a TV show time setting, like that doesn't make any sense. But whatever. Hopefully, a show comes out to suit his
Like
taste.
if the show was set in the 90s, man, I'd be all over that shit.
Right? Yeah. Oh, it's such a funny thing. I don't know. It's just so random. And then, there's so many shows that are set in a time period, but like that's not the focus of the show.
I don't think the time period is really ever the focus of certain shows.
I mean,
it usually plays a huge part of it.
Yeah, it plays a huge part.
Sometimes.
But like, it's not really like, I don't know. I guess
like Stranger Things is not about the 80s. Neither is Glow. It's just sort of like,
this is how it would have been.
Yeah. This is how stuff worked in the 80s.
Yeah, which is, they do a good job of that, I think. Mad Men. Oh, man, Mad Men. You got to watch Mad Men.
It's like not on Netflix.
Perfect 60s, like, American business. You got Korean vets, and then you got World War II vets. And, like, it's just, like, how the business structure was and how they dealt with, like, like women and whatever. It's just, like, society was so weird.
Yeah.
Because everything was, like, so perfect and shiny and clean, but actually it was the worst. Like, everyone was a dick. Everyone was just an alcoholic or a smoker. And you had, like, the whole counter movement, like, of, like, drug addicts or, like, people that are against the Vietnam War and all that shit.
Counterculture sort of thing.
Yeah. Counterculture, that's what it's fucking called. And then, like, I don't know, like, some of the things, like, okay, Don Draper, John Hamm's boss, I forgot the actor's name.
The guy who, is he the guy who plays Tony Stark's dad?
Tony Stark's dad, yeah. He's, like, a World War II vet. So, at some point, they're doing advertising with a Japanese company. So, like, the corporate Japanese guys come in, and they're like, hello, how are you? They're greeting them. And then he walks in, and he's furious. And he just starts yelling, like, slurs or whatever. And he's like, you killed my cousin, and this. And then everyone's like, dude, like, calm down. And it's just like, that's pretty realistic. I'm not going to lie. Like, I guess.
Probably something that would have happened.
Obviously, that was something that would have happened. But it's just like, that's an interesting, like, thing how, like, he never really like that character. I mean, it plays with the whole character arc, but like it's interesting to think that like a lot of vets definitely thought like that.
Yeah.
They never dropped the idea. They never like thought about it and went like they were just following orders. Which I guess, the Nazis were just following orders. That's a stupid argument. But like
I get what you mean. It's like that the idea that they were in the same almost situation as them, like
right, yeah.
They're still the enemy,
Yeah. And like I bet those guys weren't even vets. you know, they didn't even fight in the war, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just funny how like he was so angry at those poor guys, and it really like makes you think like, you know, some American vets right now, you know, like Iraqi war vets are probably like, some of them probably don't like Arabs very much, or Afghanis or whatever.
Yeah.
Considering, you know, so it's just an interesting thought how, you know, you make enemies of certain people and then you just kind of generalize it to everyone.
Yeah.
Weird, like very tribalist thing.
Humans, man.
Humans, man. We're a weird breed.
Yeah. I am of the camp that humans are just inherently horrible.
Really?
Yeah.
You're
just inherently. They're like,
who is the philosopher? You know what I'm talking about.
there's probably.
I'm of like John Locke's camp of like humans are naturally good, but we can easily like become evil.
No. I mean like there's probably aspects of that are true, but
Hobbes,
honestly,
that's his name, Hobbes.
I feel like humans are just inherently selfish because we're just sort of wired that way.
I guess.
It's like a survival instinct almost.
Yeah,
to make us selfish and to only think about ourselves and maybe our family to an extent.
Yeah. And then eventually like our tribe.
Yeah.
Or, you know, now our nation or our, you know,
exactly.
collective.
It's that sort of, it sort of evolves, but yeah.
It's really interesting. Stuff like little.
Now that doesn't mean people aren't incapable of being good. Like
Oh,
I know
of
that
course
for a
not.
fact, but I just think like there's an inherently selfish aspect to probably everybody.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's selfish in some
Even
way.
like, yeah.
No one's like this perfect selfless being that only cares about other
Exactly,
people.
yeah.
Then even if everyone was selfless, then honestly, I don't think society would function. Okay. Anyways, yeah, because like, all right, so there's this YouTuber I found. He's like this German guy. What's his name? Like Kraut or something, which is funny. But he does these videos about like. He does these videos about like certain like political movements or whatever, but he also does these videos of like the establishing of nations, of certain nations. So one of his videos is like this 1.5 hour long documentary of like the Republic of Turkey and like how he starts off with like the Turkish steppe people of like northern Mongolia and how like they slowly migrated through Persia to Anatolia or whatever, and like how the like, you know, all those empires, and then eventually the Ottoman Empire, and then eventually, you know, all that. And his way of doing history and explaining it is like, it's very detailed in a way that you wouldn't learn. I've just sort of realized you don't learn so many things in American high school. Like I watched, he did this video about fascism and like how a lot of modern like right wingers. Do you remember like, I think this was like 2 years ago, like in like Charlottesville or whatever, those guys were going around with torches, the like neo-Nazis. Yeah. So it was basically commentary on that. Yeah. And he was saying like, the reason these guys get attention and no one really stops them is because, and Mussolini did this, is they had this slogan, Mussolini's black shirts, I forgot what it was in Italian, but basically it meant like, I don't give a damn. So Mussolini, you know, would have his black shirts kill like a socialist leader. And then everyone would be like, what the hell, this, berate them. Like people got so mad and they'd all just go like, we don't care that you're mad at us.
It's interesting.
And they did it again. And they kept doing stuff like that. And they'd just go, all right, be mad at us. Like we don't care. And then eventually most of Italy was just like, all right, they're in charge. Like, if they do that, then we can't do anything because they won't change.
Yeah.
And, like, that's how Mussolini, you know, and then he became the prime minister. And then eventually Il Duce.
It was just so, like, short-lived, though, when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, you know, like 20 years.
There's no doubt that shit just, like, sowed, like, anger in the people. Like, without a doubt. So it's, like, it's probably not the right way to lead.
No, it's a terrible way to lead, but it's a good way to get to power.
Yeah, it seems like it. But
and that's the
it seems like you're just setting the trap for yourself, though, to just lose power. Like,
right. Oh yeah, of course. It's definitely. I mean, so many Italian people were like very, very angry when Mussolini died, and then the Nazis came in and started rounding up and killing Italians. You know what I mean? Like there was a concentration camp in northern Austria. The Nazis, it was mainly for Italians because the Nazis saw them as subhuman as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Specifically Italian Jews, but some just like, Italians. But like he just sort of like applied, he was like, this is a similar thing that, neo-Nazis and like modern far right, alt-right people in America and Europe are doing is they go and they do these KKK rallies or these public neo-Nazi protests. And then everyone's like, you are literally on the wrong side of history, this. And they're just like, we don't care.
Yeah, it's all very interesting for sure.
Because, like, the police weren't cracking down on them because they said, like, we don't care if you don't like us. That's not the only reason. Obviously, a whole bunch of other
There's
stuff.
a whole lot of other stuff.
But, with current movements, police are, being a little more...
aggressive,
yeah,
to say the least.
So, like, the idea of we don't care working in a political movement is kind of scary.
It is.
It worked for Mussolini, and then like
It kind of worked for Trump.
It worked for Trump.
It did work for Trump, not kind of.
Yeah, it really did. He made fun of that reporter with cerebral palsy, right?
Yeah. He said plenty of stuff that's like...
Right, that's like one example. Or like everyone's favorite clip of my African-American over here.
Yeah,
What a terrible thing to say. If any other person said that didn't have like the demeanor of Trump and like the I don't give a shit demeanor of Trump, they would have been just like removed. Like,
yeah.
No, but that's the thing. He is now the president because of his I don't care stance on things. It's really interesting how that works.
Yeah.
How people just accept it. Like they say they don't accept it, but it just sort of like becomes reality and everyone's like, okay, I guess. And like, I think that's an important thing to teach when we're discussing fascism.
Yeah, definitely. Going back to like things that aren't taught, it just feels like so much is left out of history classes in high school. Like, I could always think of any country, you could just pick a country on a map and just look at it and be like, there's so much we could learn about this area geographically and the people there, but we just choose not to.
Right.
And we only do specific eras. And it's like, we don't even get to everybody in there within that era, which I just find so interesting. Like thinking about World War II, like Hoda did a good job of trying to broaden the scope of what we would learn about beyond the U.S., Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and Germany to and Japan to Brazil, Italy, all this other shit.
It tied in every other little characters.
Yeah,
and our professor went way back in Japan and how they became this militaristic society.
Yeah, and talking about how Italy essentially became fascist. Like we didn't, you wouldn't have learned about that at a normal class, like fucking all of Mussolini's programs and whatnot about, the battle for birds and stuff like that to get a higher population and stuff like that. It's just so interesting how there's just so much left out.
Right, yeah.
That's you could focus on France during World War II and you'd still, people make fun of France because they lost immediately. But afterwards, there's all these resistance movements. There's probably enough history within that.
Yeah, for a whole class.
For a whole class, which is why college is so great.
Yeah,
there's more specific classes for that sort of thing where it's history 33 or whatever, the French resistance during World War II or whatever.
Right.
Stuff like that.
And it's just the American education system even lacks in teaching American history.
Yeah.
They're
people don't know about the Tulsa Massacre.
Right. Or Juneteenth. Or so many things. They teach about, the Mexican-American War is so okay, from 1820.
It's
whatever.
Brushed over.
Yeah, from 1820 whatever to this.
Blah, blah, blah.
We fought
Mexican
Mexico.
session, we get California and whatever.
Yeah.
It's over.
And it's so much went on there. Because
Yeah.
the United States then established like a dominant, like, okay, Mexico, we tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You know, like we get your oil, we get your iron. You know,
We controlled Mexico for so long.
yeah. And then we learned about the Mexican Revolution in our classes.
Yeah.
And that is so extensive. And the United States plays a major role in all of the, like, there's like 5
Yeah.
different revolutions, like, you know, all in one.
Revolution.
Yeah. So, like, it's really interesting how, I mean, there's so much stuff we don't learn about. I mean, hell, I know nothing about Canada. They were a British colony, and then they became a dominion, and now
And
they're
they-
just part of the.
Independent.
Yeah, now they're independent, and they're part of the Commonwealth, the English Commonwealth.
Yeah.
But like, okay, you know, they had they served in World War One, World War Two, and I don't know, they didn't have like a Revolutionary War, obviously.
Yeah.
They just sort of existed, right? That's all I know. Like, there's probably so much we could know about Canada
Yeah.
and like other, you know, Latin American countries. You know, it just goes so broad. African history is so distorted because of the fact that for the longest time, you know, the West, quote unquote, would never interact with them
Yeah.
except for like Northern Africa and and like, you know, South Africa. And then once Europe went into Africa,
It sort of disrupted any history going on.
yeah, and they just sort of established, which I guess became its own history, but they established like their own borders with complete disregard of culture and you know, whatever else, you know,
Yeah.
tribes, cultures, even like nations. So it's really interesting how like all that sort of stuff we probably never know about. And then like I was watching another one of that guy's videos about like India and Pakistan and their like little rivalry, not little, their massive rivalry.
Yeah.
And how Pakistan, those borders were drawn by some English dude. He was like, okay, the Muslims go here, and you know, the Hindus and the Sikhs are here, and like there's more Muslims here, so make that East Pakistan
Yeah.
and West Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh.
And they're not connected at all, but they're the same country.
Yeah, they're so far apart, and then there's a whole civil war, and I mean, it was terrible. You should watch that video, but like, you know, the Pakistani border with Afghanistan, that border was drawn by some English guy. He was like, oh, yep, here's the line. You know, there you go. Because England and Russia tried invading Afghanistan in like 18 whatever, and they obviously could never do it because it was so hilly, and the Afghanis were just so resilient.
Yeah.
One of the few nations that was never taken by a European nation. So some English dude was like, okay, we could never really get past here, so here's the border. And it's like, there you go, Pakistan, you're a country now.
Yeah.
And they just split literally right in between a group of people. So half of them were in Pakistan, and the other half were in Afghanistan, and it was like, you can't cross over, to your family or whatever, and now you're this nationality. And they just were like, what does that even mean? Like, I've never heard of this country or these people. Like, how do I relate with the people on the other side of this, country?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That sort of stuff is really interesting, how European powers sort of distort history just by drawing arbitrary lines on maps.
Yeah. Lately, I've been delving more into sports history.
Yeah, you watched the Ken Burns baseball documentary.
Yeah.
You keep telling me to watch that.
Yeah. No, that sports history is just like, it's so interesting. Like, it's much more small scale because it's more recent, but like stuff like baseball, football, and all this stuff, there's individual stories like within every aspect of the game, and it's just crazy to think about. Like,
Right.
There's history of there's like civil rights history within baseball. There's just so many aspects of baseball that go hand in hand with American history during its whole evolution until today, which I just find so crazy. And there's this channel on YouTube that I always talk about, which is called SB Nation. It's a very popular channel. And they mostly talk about sports history and of any sport too. And it's just all super interesting. And lately I found it more appealing than like just regular history.
Right. Because it's its own little like bubble.
Yeah.
But it sort of affects the outside world.
Yeah.
I mean, when the first black player in baseball went up, that was huge.
Yeah.
Because like all
Broke the color barrier.
yeah, so because like everyone was just like, whoa, like what?
Yeah. Well, baseball for the longest time was
Just a bunch of white guys.
just very racist. Along with, I mean,
Everything.
so was the whole of the United States.
And like I don't know, it's very, it's just so interesting how like so many people, obviously so many people didn't accept that.
Yeah.
And you know, looking back, we're just like, how was that the case? Like how could you do that? But you know, it made sense for the time or whatever, but it's still terrible. Yeah, that's really interesting. Like sports history is looking on how they've evolved and also sort of developed like their own cultures.
Yeah. And like another weird aspect of sports history is that there's so many more interesting characters than in regular history. Like when you think about it, like if you look individually at each like star player within their own right, there's an interesting story behind each and every one of them. And there's been countless figures throughout history, but like within a short span of like, I don't know, like 100+ years, like you're just getting hundreds of characters like within sports that are just so interesting to like talk and study about, like, and just observe their lives,
Right.
along with their accolades in sports and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Wasn't like Babe Ruth like a big asshole?
no,
Was it Babe Ruth? Who am I thinking of?
Ty Cobb was a huge piece of shit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, you learned about like, I mean, O.J. Simpson,
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman. I mean, seriously though, like,
He
it's funny,
visited
but
North
like,
Korea. Like,
you could take any 15 players on a basketball team, and each of them, like, or any of the, I shouldn't say 15, because the people who never see the court, you know, their stories will never be heard,
Right,
in
for the
reality.
most part.
But the key role players and the starters, like when you're looking at something like The Last Dance, like there's like 9+ people involved in that Bulls organization that each have a story within their title runs, and it's just so interesting.
yeah, because they have their sports career or whatever, and then also their personal lives, which
And then
since
their
they became
post-sports career.
Yeah, since they became such influential figures, their personal lives sort of bleed out into the public.
Yeah.
And then once they retire, it's like they're still influential. Like Michael Jordan is a very influential person.
And OJ.
Yeah, and OJ, even though he went to prison, you know, even though he was a murderer. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and like, I mean, Kobe,
Muhammad Ali.
all these Larry Bird,
all
Wilt
these
Chamberlain, all these
early
people.
60s sports figures, plus Jackie Robinson, who came onto the scene in 1947, but just massive like civil rights leaders.
Right.
There's
yeah.
that iconic picture of Muhammad Ali. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'm not forgetting his name. The Celtics guy.
The white guy?
No.
Oh.
Most titles.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
Fuck.
I feel
Okay.
like an asshole.
That's all right.
Uh,
In a few hours, we'll both remember and be like, oh, geez. How
yeah.
do we
But there's
forget
that picture of the
Yeah.
four of them like sitting there. It's just iconic. Jim Brown was there, the Cleveland Browns running
Right,
back.
yeah.
I can't believe this.
And then, you know, Muhammad Ali, you know, he dodged the Vietnam War draft, and that was a big thing. And, you know, the famous line, I can't say it, but but everyone knows the line, you know, he says, ain't no Vietnamese person call me
Yeah.
N-word. So, like, that's massive. Him and, like, Malcolm X, you know, met and, you know, talked. And it's just crazy because you learn about Malcolm X as a civil rights leader, and then you learn about Muhammad Ali as a boxer. But, like, even though, you know, he wasn't just a boxer, he was just an influential black person in American history who really changed so many people's views and, like, you know, made it seem so I don't know.
Such an idiot. Bill Russell.
Bill Russell. Okay, yeah. That. Oh my God.
I can't believe I forgot that. I knew his first name was Bill, but I can't believe I forgot his last name.
That's all right.
But yeah, there's that picture of the four of them.
Yeah.
Just super influential. Like you said, the line about the Vietnam War. They're just like, they're such larger than life figures, and all while playing sports. Like some of the most influential people in U.S. history, and they're athletes, and that's just, it goes to show like how much power, that sort of success can bring you.
Yeah,
the voice it gives.
I bet in some history classes, Colin Kaepernick will be taught.
Yeah.
Like how, we learn about Muhammad Ali in the Vietnam War draft. Colin Kaepernick will be taught about Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that. And
I agree.
It's just insane. Like, you're right. They are so, since they have so much notoriety just for their sports, it just eventually, like, they bleed into just notoriety in general.
Yeah.
And whatever they say or do has massive impact because they're not like, actors or whatever, and like, people and like whatever other famous people for whatever other thing, just because like, I don't know, it's just a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but it's different.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Sports history. I mean, all kinds of history.
Yeah. All kinds of history is great, but sports history, just in particular recently, is like, it's very, very interesting to hear about.
Right. Yeah.
Some of the things that have gone on, and like I said, that baseball documentary just highlights so much of like how much baseball like just means to American history, how it goes hand in hand with each other. The way Ken Burns connects it to American history is just like mind blowing. It's awesome.
Right. Didn't Civil War people play baseball?
Yeah.
Like the Union would just stop every once in a while and play baseball.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think so.
That's really
I
interesting.
think I remember them talking about that.
How old baseball is.
Yeah.
It's one of the older sports. Definitely older than basketball and American football, I think. And basketball is Canadian sport.
It's older than both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And then who's the guy that sort of made basketball like a thing?
There's some professor at a university or something like that.
But he's Canadian. He was in Canada, I think.
Was
something
it?
like that.
No, because I'm pretty sure it's like American. Like I don't
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe
I
I'm
don't know.
remembering wrong. But
Hockey is Canadian.
hockey's Canadian. It's funny how it bled over into Russia. And
Yeah.
the Soviet Union became a big hockey thing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how like that, different cultures adopt different sports. Like in Latin America, soccer is very popular.
Yeah.
But in Cuba, it's baseball.
It's baseball. And the Dominican Republic, it's baseball.
Because they're so much closer to the United States, so
Yeah.
they're more in the sphere of influence.
Yeah.
And what's funny is when, during the Cuban Revolution, when we were flying spy planes over, they saw soccer fields and they went, Cubans don't play soccer, Russians do. And that's how they
You know
knew.
what else is in Japan pre-World War II? They talk about it. Babe Ruth and some of the other star players went over to play at like the Japanese national team.
Right. Wow.
And they sort of like, essentially that like cemented baseball's place in Japan.
Right, yeah, Japan's
as
really
this-
big as
Yeah,
baseball.
this massive sport. Like,
And in South Korea, I think, right?
I don't know when it dipped into that, but it most likely did because of Japanese occupation. But yeah,
Right. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
How like it's an American thing and it just sort of bleeds like slightly over.
slightly like into Cuba and the Dominican Republic, which makes sense because they're right there. But then into Japan because of this event that happened like in the 20s or whatever.
Right, yeah. And then, probably in Korea because like after the Korean War or, after America became like pretty established in Korea, maybe, or maybe it was from Japan, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but
That's so interesting. And then soccer is just a global sport.
yeah, it's
of
the global sport.
Yeah. Because of England and Europe. And then like England plays cricket, and then in like India and Pakistan and Australia and South Africa,
All the Commonwealth.
yeah, cricket is also huge.
Yeah.
That's like I mean, that just makes sense, though.
Yeah.
Colonization.
Yeah, it all makes sense. But yeah, it's just interesting.
Is baseball big in the Philippines? Do you know that?
I have no idea.
I mean, it makes sense because, it was an American colony, or
Yeah, it would make sense if it was. I'm sure it is, but I don't know.
that'd be interesting. Yeah, but like, I think I agree with you on like sports history being its own little bubble is definitely like a major thing that, like learning more about would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think it'd probably draw a lot more interest in like high school history classes.
Right, yeah, because not everyone
Because it's about
loves-
sports,
Yeah, it's relatable.
It's more relatable.
Not everyone loves hearing about Napoleon or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Like I feel like learning about civil rights should go almost hand in hand with sports.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
a lot of influential like civil rights people were huge, like we were saying earlier, just like athletes as well.
Yeah, and without them stepping into the public eye of sports, like a massive part of the civil rights movement wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
Just because like sports was already so influential just to begin with, so that was really a massive catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, even like music, who wouldn't perform for segregated audiences? I think it was like,
Plenty of artists.
yeah,
wouldn't-
plenty of artists, probably like Frank Sinatra. He was like,
I heard Frank Sinatra wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
he
Especially,
wouldn't-
I mean, like Rat Pack too with Sammy Davis
Yeah.
Jr. Like
so
all
like
that stuff.
they were friends, he's friends with a black guy. So like, why would he do that? And like, imagine a big name.
Like Sinatra. Yeah.
Most clubs wanted him to play. Imagine if a segregated club was like, "Hey, come on down to play," and he was like,
He's like-
"I won't play for you." That's huge.
Yeah.
That club immediately loses notoriety, and people are like, "Maybe segregation isn't cool,"
Yeah.
which is such a stupid thing. Like, of course it's not, but society sucked.
Yeah. Still does.
Well, we had a good chat today, and hope you enjoyed our very strange discussions. We talked about like 10 different things, but
Yeah. You'll hear us next week though.
yes.
See you then.
Goodbye.